Hey, Marietta. So we back with Woman of the Bible, and this is Fortune Teller, Slave Girl, a surprising testimony to God's work. Fortune telling was a common practice in the Greek and Roman cultures in New Testament times. Divinations, the attempt to foretell the unknown and predict the future, and many superstitious practices were common. In the Jewish cultures, these practices were punishable by death. Those who practiced fortune tellers were astrologers, charmers, false prophets, and sorcerers. A young slave girl possessed with a spirit of divination approached Paul and Silas one day when they went to preach at Philippi. The demonic spirit gave her the power to predict the future. The spirit spoke the truth mockery. Her master profited from her unfortunate condition by using her for their own gain. She followed Paul and Silas for several days, yelling these men were servants of the Most High God and were showing the people the way of salvation. Being grieved in his spirit, Paul took spiritual authority over the unclean spirit and commanded it to leave the young girl. In the name of Jesus, the girl was freed. Her owners were angry when they realized that any chance of making more money from the slave girl was gone. As a result, Paul and Silas were taken before the magistrates, beaten, imprisoned, and carefully watched by the prison guards. Through prayer and singing, the miraculous occurred. An earthquake shook the prison doors open, and the prisoners' chains came loose. Grateful that the prisoner did not escape and that he was stopped from committing suicide by Paul, the guard, along with his entire family, was saved and baptized. This is the only time the book of Acts mentioned the fortune-telling slave girl. Her testimony, however, will stand forever, proving that God can bring glory out of the most unfair, abusive, and harsh situations. In today's society, divination is subtly camouflaged as entertainment. The commercials and infomercials are created enough to raise a woman's curiosity. The most important areas of life are targeted: love, sex, and work. Women of color must be careful not to fall prey to demonic spirits. We must trust in the true God for our future because his voice is the truth. And then we're going to move on to Philip's daughter, those preaching women. In the world of the Bible, women were often mentioned in passing, if at all, yet their gifts and contributions to the life of the community and the work of the ministry often shine through like a candle in a dark room. Such in this case with the daughters of Philip. Acts 21:9 makes a cursory reference to these women. As a matter of fact, one could read this chapter and completely overlook the significance of these women's ministries. Philip had 4 daughters. No mention is made of his wife. They were women of high moral characters who apparently had chosen to be single and celibate. They were preaching women who spoke inspired utterance from God, and they were appreciated for more than their prophetic gifts. A couple of centuries later, the church historian wrote that Philip's daughters were recognized as authorities on persons and events of the early church. In fact, Philip and his daughters may well have been key information source for Luke, the author of Gospel of Luke and the book of Acts. Yet they lived in a culture that typically denied the personhood and presence of women. Historical as well as contemporarily, African American women have faced a similar situation. Too often our contributions has been overlooked in the light of the achievements of African American men. Yet the powerful public preaching of women such as Jarena Lee, Florence Spearman, Randolph, and Vashti McKenzie continue to break through. As a community of believers, we must work together as women and men of God in the spirit of the gospel, supportive of the gifts that we each bring to the task. We are to model inclusions, thereby advancing God's kingdom. Whether you are called by God to preach the gospels from the pupil or to serve faithfully in the pew as a woman, you continue to play a significant role in the church and society in the advancements of God's kingdom. We cannot allow culture, tradition, dominations, or genders to hinder us from that which God has called, anoint us to do. Black woman, preach on. And I'll be back.